Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a world more than 230 million years ago. It is the late Triassic period. The continents are not arranged the way we know them today. Instead of the patchwork of land masses we recognize on a modern map, nearly all the land on Earth is fused into one enormous supercontinent called Pangaea. Vast deserts stretch across its center, and coastlines are fringed with tropical forests. The air is heavy with heat, and the skies are alive with the calls of strange reptiles that glide between trees. This is the stage where dinosaurs first appear. Dinosaurs did not step onto the world as the giants we often picture in our imagination. They began small, nimble, lightly built creatures who shared their world with a wide variety of other reptiles. In fact, if you were living in the Triassic, you might not even have noticed dinosaurs at first glance. They lived side by side with crocodile-like archosaurs, massive amphibians lurking in rivers, and early mammals no bigger than mice. Yet hidden in these small, lightly built animals was the blueprint of what would become the most successful terrestrial vertebrates in history. The earliest known dinosaurs included species such as Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus. Eoraptor, a swift and lightly built carnivore, was no taller than a large dog. Herrerasaurus was larger, sleek, and dangerous, one of the first predators to walk on two legs. These early dinosaurs were not yet the rulers of their world. Instead, they were survivors in an environment dominated by other reptiles, some of which dwarfed them in size and strength. But the adaptability of dinosaurs, their ability to move efficiently, to reproduce effectively, and to exploit new environments, set them apart from their competition. The Triassic period was a time of change. Seasonal extremes shaped ecosystems, long dry seasons followed by sudden violent rains. Plants like cycads, ferns, and the earliest conifers dominated the landscape, forming the backdrop against which dinosaurs began their slow rise. Herbivorous dinosaurs, such as Plagiosaurus, appeared, among the first to experiment with a plant-based diet on a large scale. Plagiosaurus could grow over 20 feet long, towering over the smaller carnivores that hunted nearby. Their long necks gave them access to vegetation others could not reach, and their bulk made them less vulnerable to attack. But life in the Triassic was not secure. The world was volatile, both ecologically and geologically. Massive volcanic activity rumbled beneath Pangaea, splitting the supercontinent apart and releasing vast quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Climate patterns shifted. Some species thrived in these changes, while others were pushed to extinction. It was in these upheavals that dinosaurs gained their first foothold, slowly edging out rivals who could not adapt to the new conditions. The idea that dinosaurs emerged as accidental victors, creatures who simply endured when others vanished, reminds us that evolution is not about strength alone. It is about timing, flexibility, and survival through unpredictable change. Dinosaurs did not seize control of their world in a single dramatic event. They crept forward step by step, generation by generation, finding opportunities where others faltered. Now, before we go deeper into this story, let me pause for just a moment. I always love knowing where people are tuning in from. So if you're listening right now, drop a comment below and let me know. Are you lying in bed trying to fall asleep? Or are you listening during the day while doing something else?
It's always fascinating to see the mix of people this journey brings together. As the Triassic period unfolded, these small beginnings laid the groundwork for something far greater. Dinosaurs diversified into different forms: predators with sharp teeth and claws, plant eaters with long necks and powerful jaws, creatures designed to thrive in deserts, forests, and floodplains alike. Their skeletons reveal a shift toward efficiency: hollow bones that made them lighter, postures that allowed them to stand upright and move with agility, and lungs that were likely far more effective than those of their reptilian cousins. These adaptations would prove essential in the millennia to come.
By the end of the Triassic, dinosaurs had spread across much of Pangaea. They were still not the giants of later eras, but they had begun to claim niches once dominated by other reptiles. A series of extinctions, triggered by climate change and volcanic upheaval, removed many of their competitors, opening up space for dinosaurs to expand. When the dust settled, they were no longer just survivors lurking in the shadows. They were poised to rise into dominance. What is striking about this first chapter of their story is how humble their beginnings were. The creatures that would one day give rise to the enormous Brachiosaurus, the armored Ankylosaurus, and the terrifying Tyrannosaurus rex began as modest animals, running through forests and hiding from larger predators. Their future greatness was not obvious, yet it was already written into their bones. The Triassic ended with one of Earth's great extinction events. Around 201 million years ago, much of life was swept away, clearing the ecological stage. Entire families of reptiles vanished. Amphibians that had survived for millions of years disappeared. But dinosaurs, with their versatile bodies and efficient lifestyles, endured. This was their turning point. From this moment onward, they stepped into the role of rulers of the Mesozoic world, spreading into every corner of the land. As you settle into this journey, keep in mind that what we often imagine when we think of dinosaurs, the enormous sauropods, the fierce carnivores, comes later. Here, in this dawn, they are still emerging, still finding their place in the world. Yet even in their earliest days, they carried the traits that would make them one of the most extraordinary success stories in the history of life. The story of the dinosaurs begins not with thunderous footsteps shaking the ground, but with small creatures quietly adapting, waiting for their moment. Their time was coming, and with it, an age that would last more than 160 million years.
Chapter 2: Giants of the Jurassic. The Triassic had ended in upheaval. Massive extinctions swept through the world, reshaping ecosystems and clearing the way for new rulers to emerge. In the wake of this destruction, the Jurassic period began, an age that would see dinosaurs not merely survive, but expand into astonishing new forms. It was during the Jurassic, beginning about 201 million years ago, that dinosaurs grew into the giants most people picture when they imagine the prehistoric past. When we think of the Jurassic, it is often the towering plant eaters that come to mind, sauropods. These were the largest animals ever to walk the earth, and their sheer size remains almost impossible to comprehend. Creatures like Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and Apatosaurus grew to lengths of over 80 feet, their massive necks stretching upward
like living cranes, as they stripped foliage from the tops of trees. Unlike the small and tentative dinosaurs of the Triassic, these animals represented a dramatic shift. They were not merely surviving, they were flourishing on a scale that reshaped entire landscapes.
The success of sauropods was tied to several key adaptations. Their necks, made up of an incredible number of elongated vertebrae, allowed them to feed high above the reach of other herbivores. Their lungs were highly efficient, similar in design to the lungs of modern birds, enabling them to take in vast amounts of oxygen. And their massive size offered protection from predators. Few carnivores dared to challenge a fully grown sauropod. Yet for all their enormity, these giants were not slow or clumsy. Fossil trackways suggest that herds of sauropods could move together across landscapes, migrating to new feeding grounds as seasons changed. Imagine the sight. Dozens of massive animals, necks swaying, footsteps shaking the ground, moving like living mountains across plains and valleys. Their very presence shaped the vegetation around them as forests were stripped and new growth constantly replaced what they consumed. Of course, where there were giants, there were also predators. The Jurassic was home to some of the first truly large carnivorous dinosaurs. Allosaurus, one of the apex hunters of its time, grew to more than 30 feet long. With sharp, serrated teeth and powerful jaws, Allosaurus was built for tearing through flesh. Fossil evidence suggests that these predators sometimes hunted in groups, working together to bring down prey far larger than themselves. It was a deadly balance, massive plant eaters shaping the land, and equally fearsome carnivores ensuring that only the strongest survived.
But not all dinosaurs of the Jurassic were enormous. Smaller species thrived alongside the giants. Dinosaurs such as Ornitholestes darted through forests in pursuit of small mammals, reptiles, and insects. Meanwhile, medium-sized herbivores like Camptosaurus and Stegosaurus filled other niches. Stegosaurus, with its iconic backplates and spiked tail, developed one of the most distinctive defensive systems in prehistory. The plates may have helped regulate body temperature or served as displays to intimidate rivals, while the tail spikes, the fearsome thagomizer, were capable of delivering lethal blows to predators. Beyond the dinosaurs themselves, the Jurassic world teemed with life. Early mammals remained small, often no larger than rodents, but they were already adapting in remarkable ways, filling ecological gaps left open by the dominance of dinosaurs. Flying reptiles, the pterosaurs, soared over coastlines and rivers, some with wingspans rivaling small aircraft. In the seas, marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs ruled, their streamlined bodies slicing through the water as they hunted fish and squid. The environment of the Jurassic period supported this explosion of diversity. Unlike the dry extremes of the Triassic, the Jurassic world was lush and warm. Vast forests of conifers, cycads, and ferns covered much of the land, offering endless food for plant eaters. The breakup of Pangaea continued during this time, creating new coastlines, lakes, and inland seas that supported thriving ecosystems. Rain was more abundant, climates more stable, and life responded with abundance. It is worth imagining what it might have been like to stand in such a world. Towering trees surrounded you, their branches swaying as immense sauropods stretched upward to graze. The ground trembled with their movements, the air filled with the deep calls of animals communicating across distance. Smaller dinosaurs darted between tree trunks, while predators prowled at the edges of herds, waiting for a chance to strike at the weak or the young. Above, shadows passed across the forest floor as pterosaurs glided silently overhead. It was a planet alive on a scale we can scarcely imagine today.
Fossils tell us that sauropods did not just grow large, they grew quickly. Bone studies reveal growth rings much like those in trees, showing that species such as Apatosaurus reached adult size in little more than a decade. This rapid growth may have been a key factor in their survival. By becoming too large for most predators in such a short time, they could outpace the dangers of their early years. It also meant they had to eat constantly, consuming vast amounts of vegetation daily to fuel their immense bodies. All of this paints a picture of the Jurassic as an age of abundance and power. Dinosaurs had become more than survivors. They were dominant architects of their ecosystems. Their size, diversity, and adaptability allowed them to thrive in nearly every environment, from arid deserts to lush forests. And yet, even at the height of their success, change was always on the horizon. Evolution never stops, and new challenges were always just ahead. The Jurassic giants remind us of nature's ability to push boundaries. On a planet where reptiles once creeped low to the ground, evolution had produced animals that could tower over treetops. They were not myths or monsters, but real creatures born of necessity and opportunity. For millions of years, they ruled, reshaping Earth's landscapes with every step. As the Jurassic drew on, these patterns of dominance and diversity only deepened, setting the stage for the even greater variety of forms that would emerge in the next era, the Cretaceous. But here, in the Jurassic, dinosaurs had already proven themselves as the undisputed rulers of the land. They were no longer the fragile newcomers of the Triassic. They were giants, and their reign was just beginning.
Chapter 3: Kings of the Cretaceous. The Cretaceous period, beginning about 145 million years ago, marked the final and perhaps most spectacular chapter in the reign of the dinosaurs. Lasting nearly 80 million years, it was the longest period of the Mesozoic era. And during this time, dinosaurs reached their peak diversity. The landscapes of the Cretaceous were alive with an astonishing variety of creatures, from towering herbivores to swift predators. It was in this world that some of the most iconic dinosaurs of all time emerged, creatures that would capture the imagination of humanity millions of years later. When most people think of dinosaurs, one name dominates above all others: Tyrannosaurus rex. The tyrant lizard king is often considered the ultimate predator, a symbol of raw power. Standing over 12 feet tall at the hips, stretching nearly 40 feet in length, and weighing close to 9 tons, T-Rex was one of the largest land carnivores to ever live. Its skull alone measured 5 feet long, filled with teeth the size of bananas, serrated and designed to crush bone as easily as flesh. Yet the true terror of Tyrannosaurus may not have been its size alone, but its bite force, estimated to be stronger than that of any other land animal in history. With a single bite, it could pulverize the bones of its prey, ensuring nothing went to waste.
But the Cretaceous was not ruled by T-Rex alone. The period was filled with predators of extraordinary variety. In what is now Africa, Spinosaurus prowled rivers and lakes. Longer than T-Rex and equipped with a massive sail on its back, Spinosaurus may have been the largest predatory dinosaur ever discovered. Unlike T-Rex, it was adapted to an aquatic lifestyle, hunting fish and perhaps ambushing prey at the water's edge. Its long, crocodile-like jaws and conical teeth made it a specialist in watery environments, a sharp reminder that dinosaur evolution produced not just brute force, but remarkable specialization. Alongside these giants were smaller, agile hunters like the velociraptor. Popularized in modern culture, real velociraptors were smaller than their cinematic counterparts, roughly the size of a turkey. But they were no less impressive. With sharp, sickle-shaped claws on their feet and a high level of intelligence compared to many other dinosaurs, they hunted in packs, coordinating their movements to bring down prey larger than themselves. Fossils have even been found showing velociraptors locked in deadly combat with herbivores, claws embedded in their opponents at the moment of death. The plant-eating dinosaurs of the Cretaceous were just as diverse and awe-inspiring. Herds of Triceratops roamed the plains, their massive frilled skulls and 3 sharp horns offering protection against predators. These animals may have lived in large groups, their horns not only serving as weapons, but as displays during social interactions and mating contests. Fossil evidence of scars and healed wounds on frills suggests that Triceratops regularly engaged in head-to-head battles, perhaps testing dominance or defending territory.
Meanwhile, the duck-billed hadrosaurs became some of the most widespread herbivores of the time. Species like Parasaurolophus, with its long, curved head crest, may have used its hollow structure as a resonance chamber to produce low, haunting calls. These vocalizations could have carried for miles, allowing herds to communicate across vast distances. Such adaptations reveal that dinosaurs were not simply beasts of instinct, but creatures engaged in complex behaviors, from social bonding to cooperative defense. Other plant eaters took on astonishing forms. The ankylosaurs were living tanks, armored from head to tail in bony plates. Some carried massive clubs at the end of their tails, capable of shattering the legs of attacking predators. Their low, squat bodies made them difficult targets, and their defensive adaptations ensured that they could thrive in landscapes dominated by apex carnivores. At the other extreme stood the towering sauropods, which persisted throughout the Cretaceous. Argentinosaurus, one of the largest known land animals, reached lengths of over 100 feet and may have weighed 70 tons. Herds of these giants reshaped the land, leaving behind trails and footprints that can still be seen today. The environment of the Cretaceous was as varied as its inhabitants. By this time, the supercontinent of Pangaea had broken apart into smaller continents, creating new coastlines and isolated habitats. This fragmentation spurred evolution, producing new species as populations adapted to their unique environments. Forests of angiosperms, the first flowering plants, began to spread, adding color and variety to the ecosystems. These plants offered new food sources for herbivores and helped drive the diversification of insects, which in turn supported new ecological relationships.
In the skies, pterosaurs continued to reign, though their dominance was increasingly challenged by the rise of the first true birds.
Descended directly from small theropod dinosaurs, birds carried with them the evolutionary legacy of their reptilian ancestors. Some still bore teeth and claws, but they were already experimenting with flight in forms strikingly similar to those we see today. In the seas, giant reptiles like Mosasaurus and Plesiosaurus hunted fish and squid, turning oceans into theaters of power and survival. To walk in the Cretaceous would have been to step into a world of contrasts. Herds of hadrosaurs grazed peacefully, while predators lurked just out of sight. Towering sauropods swayed as they fed on treetops, their massive bodies casting shadows that stretched across entire valleys. Flashes of color from flowering plants dotted the landscape, while insects buzzed and birds flitted overhead. Life was vibrant, dangerous, and endlessly inventive. Yet, as magnificent as the Cretaceous world was, it carried within it the seeds of its own end. For while the dinosaurs flourished, forces beyond their control were slowly building. Geological changes, shifting climates, and cosmic chance would all conspire to bring about the close of their reign. But in this moment, at their peak, they were the kings of the earth, diverse, powerful, and unmatched in dominance. The Cretaceous represents the culmination of the dinosaur story, the height of their evolutionary journey. It is here that we find not only the fiercest predators and the most resilient herbivores, but also the beginnings of the line that would survive their extinction, the birds. From Tyrannosaurus to Triceratops, from Spinosaurus to Velociraptor, the kings of the Cretaceous left behind a legacy of power and adaptation that still fascinates us today.
Chapter 4: Armored Titans. Not all dinosaurs survived by being swift or gigantic. Some relied on defense above all else, turning their very bodies into living fortresses. These were the armored dinosaurs, the Stegosaurs and Ankylosaurs, creatures that remind us just how inventive evolution can be when survival is at stake. The story of armored dinosaurs began in the Jurassic with Stegosaurus, one of the most recognizable dinosaurs ever discovered. Stegosaurus carried 2 rows of large bony plates rising along its back like a series of jagged sails. At the end of its tail was the formidable weapon we now call the thagomizer, long, sharp spikes capable of fending off predators such as Allosaurus. Although Stegosaurus was not as large as the sauropods that lived alongside it, it was still an impressive animal, stretching up to 30 feet in length. What exactly were those plates for? For decades, paleontologists debated their purpose. Some believed they acted as armor, though their placement would not have protected the most vulnerable parts of the body. Others suggested they served as display structures, making the animal appear larger to predators or more attractive to mates. Recent studies suggest the plates may have been filled with blood vessels, possibly used to regulate body temperature like natural radiators. Whatever the case, they gave Stegosaurus one of the most distinctive silhouettes in the entire dinosaur kingdom.
While Stegosaurus thrived in the Jurassic, the Ankylosaurs rose to prominence in the Cretaceous. If Stegosaurus was striking and strange, Ankylosaurus was a tank. Its body was covered in thick, bony plates called osteoderms, forming a shield that protected it from attack. The skull itself was reinforced, and its low, squat posture made it difficult for predators to flip or injure. But its most famous feature was the massive club at the end of its tail, built from fused vertebrae and covered in solid bone. This weapon was capable of delivering devastating blows, strong enough to break the legs of even a Tyrannosaurus rex. Imagine the standoff. A hungry predator approaches, muscles tense, teeth bared. The ankylosaur lowers its head and braces itself, swinging its tail with surprising speed and force. The predator hesitates. Even if it could kill the armored giant, the risk of crippling injury might outweigh the reward. In such encounters, survival was not just about strength, but about deterrence, and ankylosaurs were masters of it. Ankylosaurs came in many forms. Some species were heavily armored, but lacked tail clubs, relying instead on their sheer bulk for protection. Others had elaborate spikes protruding from their sides, making them nearly impossible to bite without injury. Their armor evolved differently depending on their environment, a living record of adaptation shaped by the threats they faced. Fossils of ankylosaurs have been found across North America, Asia, and Europe, showing just how widespread and successful these creatures became.
But armor alone did not define them. Despite their defenses, ankylosaurs were peaceful plant eaters. They moved slowly through forests and plains, feeding on low-growing plants. Their broad beaks were perfect for cropping ferns and cycads close to the ground, and their teeth were designed for grinding tough vegetation. These animals may not have been fast or agile, but their steady lifestyle served them well. Protected by armor and armed with powerful tails, they could afford to live at a slower pace in a dangerous world. Another remarkable armored dinosaur of the Cretaceous was Nodosaurus, which lacked the tail club but carried rows of bony plates and spikes along its body. Unlike Ankylosaurus, Nodosaurus was built more lightly, perhaps able to move with greater agility. Its spikes would have discouraged predators from attacking its flanks, creating a different kind of defense strategy. The diversity of armored dinosaurs shows how evolution solved the same problem: how to survive in a world of deadly predators in multiple ways. Stegosaurs relied on display and intimidation, combined with deadly spikes. Ankylosaurs built walls of armor and wielded tail clubs like hammers. Nodosaurids chose spines and speed. In each case, the solution reflected not just the threats they faced, but the environments they lived in. Beyond their defenses, armored dinosaurs also played vital roles in their ecosystems. By feeding on low-lying vegetation, they helped shape plant communities, opening space for other species to grow. Their droppings spread seeds across landscapes, promoting the growth of new plants. In life and in death, they were integral to the balance of their world.
The fossil record gives us extraordinary glimpses of these armored titans. In some cases, ankylosaur fossils have been found so well preserved that their armor, skin impressions, and even hints of their original coloration remain. One such fossil, nicknamed the Sleeping Dragon, preserves an ankylosaur lying on its belly, armor intact, as though it had simply laid down to rest. Discoveries like these remind us how much there is still to learn, and how lifelike these creatures once were. It is easy to imagine armored dinosaurs as simple, plodding creatures, but their very existence reveals the constant tension of life in the Mesozoic.
Predators grew sharper teeth, stronger jaws, and greater speed. In response, herbivores grew plates, spikes, and clubs. This evolutionary arms race played out for millions of years, shaping creatures of almost mythic appearance. In the end, armored dinosaurs remind us of the diversity of strategies life can take. Some creatures become swift hunters, others become giants. But some, like Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus, turned their very bodies into weapons, enduring by standing firm rather than running fast. In their spiked silhouettes and plated hides, we see evolution's creativity at work, a reminder that survival can come in many forms. As the Cretaceous world continued to change, these titans of defense thrived, holding their ground against even the fiercest of predators. Their story is one of resilience, of patience, and of the enduring balance between attack and protection that defines life itself.
Chapter 5. The World They Lived In. When we think of dinosaurs, we often imagine the creatures themselves. Towering giants, armored defenders, swift predators. But to truly understand their world, we must also picture the landscapes they inhabited. Dinosaurs did not exist in isolation. They thrived in ecosystems shaped by shifting climates, vast forests, rivers, deserts, and oceans. Their lives were bound to the environments that nourished and challenged them. The world they lived in was as dynamic and diverse as the dinosaurs themselves. During the Mesozoic era, the Earth was in constant motion. At the beginning of this age, all the continents were fused into a single supercontinent called Pangaea. Over millions of years, tectonic forces pulled this great landmass apart. Slowly, oceans widened, mountain ranges rose, and new coastlines emerged. By the time of the Cretaceous, the map of the Earth was beginning to resemble the one we recognize today. But back then, sea levels were far higher, and vast inland seas cut through continents, creating unique environments teeming with life. The climate of the Mesozoic was generally warmer than today's, with no polar ice caps and higher levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Lush forests spread even into high latitudes, and tropical conditions extended far from the equator. Imagine Antarctica covered not in snow and ice, but in conifers and ferns. The air would have been thick with humidity in some regions, dry and scorching in others. These extremes created a variety of habitats, each supporting its own caste of dinosaurs.
Forests were central to this world. In the Triassic and Jurassic, giant conifers, cycads, and tree ferns dominated the landscape. Later, in the Cretaceous, flowering plants, angiosperms, appeared for the first time. This was a revolution in Earth's ecosystems. Flowers meant nectar, seeds, and fruit, which attracted insects, mammals, and eventually birds. For herbivorous dinosaurs, flowering plants offered new food sources, leading to changes in feeding strategies and perhaps even behaviors. The spread of flowering plants reshaped entire landscapes, and with them, the creatures that lived within them. The open plains and floodplains were just as important. Herds of sauropods wandered across these grassless fields, their long necks sweeping across forests of ferns and cycads. In their wake, they cleared enormous swaths of vegetation, creating room for new growth. Their movements shaped ecosystems, much like elephants do today. Dinosaurs were not only inhabitants of their world, they were engineers of it, sculpting the land and the plants with every bite, every step, every herd migration. Rivers and lakes were lifelines. Dinosaurs, like all animals, needed water, and so they gathered at riverbanks and lake shores. These waterways were home to an array of life: turtles, crocodile-like reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Insects swarmed above the surface, and pterosaurs glided overhead, diving to snatch prey. At night, the sounds of these wetlands would have been deafening, a chorus of croaks, chirps, and roars, echoing through the dark.
The oceans of the Mesozoic were worlds of their own. Vast marine reptiles dominated the seas. Ichthyosaurs, shaped like modern dolphins, hunted in open waters. Plesiosaurs, with long necks, glided gracefully as they snapped up schools of fish. Later in the Cretaceous, the fearsome mosasaurs rose to power, some stretching more than 50 feet in length. Coral reefs, much like those of today, flourished in warm, shallow seas, supporting countless fish and invertebrates. The oceans were as rich and diverse as the lands, filled with predators and prey, locked in eternal struggle. Deserts, too, were part of the dinosaur world. Fossils from regions that were once vast, arid plains show that some dinosaurs adapted to extreme heat and scarcity of water. Tracks preserved in sand dunes reveal that even in harsh environments, life persisted. Small theropods left their prints beside the trails of insects and lizards. Occasionally, storms would flood these regions, leaving behind temporary lakes where herds gathered. These brief respites allowed ecosystems to bloom before drying out again. The skies of the Mesozoic were unlike anything we know today. Pterosaurs soared on wings of skin stretched across elongated fingers. Some were small, darting after insects. Others, like Quetzalcoatlus, were giants with wingspans over 30 feet, among the largest flying animals ever to exist. Their presence added a vertical dimension to the dinosaur world, as shadows passed overhead and cries echoed from above. The rise of true birds in the Cretaceous only added to this chorus, filling the skies with feathers, wings, and song. The sounds and smells of this world would have been overwhelming to modern senses. Imagine the rumble of a herd of sauropods moving through a forest, the crash of trees as they fed, the distant roar of a predator echoing across a valley. The air would have carried the scent of resin from conifers, the musk of giant animals, the sharp odor of volcanic activity in geologically active regions. This was a world alive in every sense, vibrant and raw.
Volcanoes were also a constant presence. The breakup of continents was driven by tectonic activity, and with it came eruptions, lava flows, and the release of gases that influenced climate. These geological forces not only shaped the land, but also the fates of the creatures living upon it. Periods of warming and cooling, droughts and floods, were all linked to the restless earth beneath their feet. To walk in the world of dinosaurs would have been to step into a place both alien and familiar.
Forests, rivers, mountains, deserts, and seas, all recognizable, yet filled with creatures unlike anything alive today. It was a world in motion, a world constantly reshaped by the push and pull of life and geology. Dinosaurs did not merely exist within this world, they were inseparable from it, shaping and being shaped by the landscapes around them. In many ways, the story of the Mesozoic environment is the story of balance. Herbivores grazed and reshaped plant life, carnivores kept populations in check, and plants in turn responded by evolving new defenses or strategies for reproduction. The rise of flowering plants was as revolutionary as the rise of the dinosaurs themselves, sparking new interactions and new possibilities. The world the dinosaurs lived in was not static, it was ever-changing. Forests rose and fell, seas advanced and retreated, climates shifted. Through it all, dinosaurs endured, adapted, and thrived. Their resilience was a testament to the richness of the environments that sustained them. To imagine their world is to imagine Earth at its most vibrant, a planet alive with possibility, bursting with life, and echoing with the footsteps of giants.
Chapter 6. Strange and Unusual Dinosaurs. When most people picture dinosaurs, they imagine the familiar giants, long-necked sauropods, horned triceratops, or the mighty Tyrannosaurus rex. Yet the fossil record tells us that the world of dinosaurs was far stranger and more diverse than popular images suggest. Over more than 160 million years, evolution experimented in countless directions, producing creatures so bizarre and unexpected that they seem almost alien to modern eyes. These unusual dinosaurs remind us that life is endlessly inventive, constantly testing the boundaries of form and function. One of the most peculiar was Therizinosaurus, a dinosaur from the late Cretaceous of Asia. At first glance, it seemed almost a patchwork of contradictions. It was a theropod, a group that included fierce carnivores like Velociraptor and T-Rex. Yet Therizinosaurus was herbivorous. It walked on two legs and had a long neck, small head, and a bulky, feathered body. But its most striking feature was its arms. Each hand carried 3 enormous claws, some over 3 feet long, curved like scythes. These claws were not weapons for hunting prey, but likely tools for pulling down branches or defending against predators. Imagine a towering, feathered creature swaying through forests, using claws the size of swords to strip leaves from trees. Then there was Amargasaurus, a sauropod unlike any other. While most sauropods were defined by long necks and massive bodies, Amargasaurus carried a row of tall, double spines along its neck and back. These spines may have supported a sail of skin used to regulate body temperature or display to rivals. Others suggest the spines stood bare, forming a bristling crown that made the animal look even more imposing. At around 30 feet in length, it was small for a sauropod, but its unusual profile ensured it left a distinct mark on prehistory.
Another striking oddity was Stygimoloch, a member of the Pachycephalosaur family. These dinosaurs were famous for their thick, domed skulls, which they may have used in head-butting contests, much like rams today. Stygimoloch, however, took this to extremes. Its dome was surrounded by an array of spikes, giving it a fearsome, almost dragon-like appearance. Despite this, it was a plant eater, more likely to graze peacefully than terrorize its neighbors.
The spikes may have served as ornaments for display or as protection against predators. Either way, its skull remains one of the most unusual in the dinosaur world. Not all oddities were about horns and spikes. Some dinosaurs were unusual because of their lifestyle. Spinosaurus, already mentioned as one of the largest predators, stands out as the only known semi-aquatic dinosaur. While most theropods hunted on land, Spinosaurus adapted to rivers and lakes. With elongated jaws filled with conical teeth, it specialized in catching fish. Its massive sail, formed by elongated vertebrae, remains a mystery. Was it a display structure, a thermal regulator, or perhaps something entirely different? No matter the purpose, it gave Spinosaurus a silhouette unmatched among other carnivores. Equally strange were the oviraptorosaurs, small theropods with parrot-like beaks. Once thought to be egg thieves, hence the name oviraptor, fossils later revealed that they were attentive parents, often found brooding their own nests. Some carried elaborate head crests, perhaps used in mating displays, while others had fully feathered bodies, bridging the gap between non-avian dinosaurs and birds. Their mixture of reptilian and avian traits makes them some of the most fascinating creatures of the Cretaceous.
One of the oddest discoveries in recent years was Concavenator, a theropod from Spain. It carried an unusual hump on its back, formed by elongated vertebrae near its hips. The purpose of this hump remains unknown. Some suggest it stored fat, like a camel. Others believe it was a display feature, a way to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Concavenator also showed evidence of quill knobs on its arms, suggesting it had primitive feathers, a strange blend of features that highlight the complexity of dinosaur evolution. Among herbivores, the hadrosaurs produced some of the strangest skulls. Dinosaurs like Parasaurolophus carried long, backward-curving crests that may have acted like natural trumpets, resonating sounds across vast distances. Others, like Corythosaurus, had helmet-like crests, while Lambeosaurus sported hollow, hatchet-shaped structures. These head ornaments were not just for show. They were likely tools of communication, allowing herds to coordinate movements or warn of danger. In a world without language, sound and display were vital. The diversity of strange dinosaurs was not limited to appearance. Behavior added another layer of fascination. Fossils of small theropods show evidence of pack hunting, while trackways suggest some species migrated in herds numbering in the hundreds. Nesting sites reveal dinosaurs returning year after year to the same locations, laying eggs in carefully arranged colonies. Some species even showed evidence of brooding their young, warming eggs with feathered bodies long before birds perfected the behavior. These discoveries remind us that dinosaurs were not simply beasts of instinct, but complex animals with diverse strategies for survival. What makes these unusual dinosaurs so captivating is not just their strangeness, but the reminder that evolution is a process of experimentation. Some adaptations succeeded, shaping lineages that lasted for millions of years. Others were short-lived, evolutionary dead ends that left behind fossils but no descendants. To us, they seem bizarre, but in their own time, they were simply animals, each perfectly adapted to the niche it filled.
Chapter 7. the oceans and skies of the Mesozoic. When we picture dinosaurs, we often focus on the land. Towering sauropods grazing on treetops, fierce predators prowling across plains, herds of horned herbivores moving through forests. But the Mesozoic era was not limited to the ground. Above, the skies were filled with winged reptiles, and below, the oceans teemed with colossal marine predators. These realms were just as important as the land, creating a planet where life flourished in every direction, on the ground, in the water, and in the air. The skies of the Mesozoic were ruled not by birds at first, but by pterosaurs. These flying reptiles appeared in the late Triassic and would dominate the air for over 150 million years. Some were small, no larger than a sparrow, darting after insects in the twilight. Others were giants of almost unimaginable scale. Quetzalcoatlus, a pterosaur from the late Cretaceous, had a wingspan over 30 feet, making it one of the largest flying animals of all time. With its long, toothless beak and slender neck, it may have stalked prey on the ground as well as soared above it, casting vast shadows over the plains.
Pterosaurs were not dinosaurs, but they were close relatives, part of the same great evolutionary branch of archosaurs. Their wings were formed from a membrane of skin stretched over a single elongated finger, a design very different from the feathered wings of birds. Yet they were masters of the air. Some skimmed over oceans like modern seabirds, dipping long jaws into the water to snatch fish. Others soared high on thermal currents, gliding for hours with minimal effort. Fossil evidence shows that pterosaurs occupied countless niches: fishermen, scavengers, insect hunters, and even creatures that may have fed like modern flamingos, filtering small prey from the water. As the Cretaceous advanced, true birds began to emerge, descended directly from small feathered theropods. At first, these early birds were primitive, with teeth in their beaks and claws on their wings, but they were already experimenting with flight, song, and perching. By the end of the Cretaceous, some bird lineages resembled modern species closely, ready to continue long after the age of dinosaurs ended. The skies of the Mesozoic were thus a place of transition, where feathered birds slowly rose to join and eventually replace the great pterosaurs. If the skies were full of wonders, the seas were no less extraordinary. The Mesozoic oceans were dominated not by dinosaurs, but by marine reptiles, creatures uniquely adapted to life in water. Among the earliest were the ichthyosaurs, sleek and streamlined like modern dolphins. They gave birth to live young, evidence of fossils showing mothers preserved in the act of giving birth. Some ichthyosaurs grew to lengths of over 50 feet, their huge eyes adapted for hunting in deep, dark waters. Then came the plesiosaurs, with their long necks and paddle-like flippers. They glided gracefully through the water, perhaps ambushing schools of fish or squid. Their design was unlike anything alive today, with necks stretching up to 20 feet long, giving them a strange, almost otherworldly appearance. Not all plesiosaurs had long necks,
Some, known as pliosaurs, had massive skulls filled with sharp teeth, making them apex predators of the seas. Kronosaurus, one of the largest pliosaurs, was a formidable hunter, rivaling any land predator in size and ferocity. The climax of marine dominance came in the late Cretaceous with the rise of the mosasaurs. These enormous reptiles, related more closely to modern lizards than dinosaurs, grew to lengths exceeding 50 feet. With powerful tails, they propelled themselves through the oceans like giant crocodiles. Their double-hinged jaws and flexible skulls allowed them to swallow large prey whole. Fossilized stomach contents reveal that mosasaurs ate fish, squid, turtles, and even other marine reptiles. In the oceans of the Cretaceous, mosasaurs were the undisputed apex predators, feared by everything that swam. The seas were also home to other remarkable life. Giant turtles glided through the waters, some as large as small cars. Sharks and rays, ancestors of modern species, hunted in schools. Invertebrates like ammonites, spiral-shelled relatives of squid, filled the oceans, their shells floating in abundance. Coral reefs flourished, much like today, providing shelter for fish and smaller reptiles. It was a world as vibrant and competitive as the land, alive with predators and prey. To imagine this world is to imagine sensory overload. On the coast, you might hear the calls of pterosaurs circling overhead, their shadows drifting across the sand. Out at sea, the water churns as a mosasaur breaks the surface, jaws snapping shut around a struggling fish. In the distance, the elegant neck of a plesiosaur arches above the waves before sinking again. And at twilight, flocks of early birds settle into trees, chirping and fluttering as the sun sets over a prehistoric horizon.
Chapter 8: Hunters and the Hunted. At the heart of the Mesozoic world was a constant struggle for survival, a delicate balance between predator and prey. Every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest sauropod, played a role in this eternal contest. The story of the dinosaurs is not only about their size and strangeness, but also about the dynamic relationships that define their existence. Hunters and the hunted. Predators were the sharpened edge of evolution, honed for speed, strength, and cunning. The theropods, the great carnivorous dinosaurs, were among the most specialized hunters to ever live. At the top stood giants like Tyrannosaurus rex, whose massive bite could crush bone, and Allosaurus, with its serrated teeth designed to slice flesh. These predators relied on raw power, ambushing or chasing down prey with terrifying efficiency. Fossilized bite marks on the bones of hadrosaurians and ceratopsians bear silent testimony to their attacks. Yet not all hunters were colossal. Smaller theropods, such as Velociraptor and Deinonychus, relied on agility and intelligence. Their sickle-shaped claws, sharp and deadly, were designed to pierce vital organs. Evidence suggests they may have hunted in coordinated groups, much like wolves today, overwhelming prey with teamwork. For these predators, speed and precision mattered more than brute strength.
The prey, however, was never helpless. The herbivores of the Mesozoic evolved equally remarkable defenses. The Triceratops, with its horns and massive frill, could lower its head like a living shield, charging predators with devastating force. Ankylosaurs, armored from head to tail, carried bone-crushing clubs that could cripple attackers.
Even the towering sauropods had defenses. Their sheer size made them nearly invulnerable to anything but the most determined predator, and their whip-like tails could lash out with bone-breaking speed. The balance between hunter and prey drove evolution forward in a constant arms race. As predators grew larger and more efficient, prey species developed new strategies to survive. Herd behavior became one of the most important defenses. Fossil trackways reveal lines of sauropods moving together, their numbers offering protection. Hadrosaurs and ceratopsians likely gathered in vast herds where the sheer size of the group reduced individual risk. In such communities, predators could still strike, but the chances of survival for the herd as a whole increased. Camouflage also played a role. While we often picture dinosaurs in bright reptilian colors, evidence from fossilized skin and feathers suggests many had patterns suited for blending into their environments. A mottled hide could help a hadrosaur vanish among ferns and trees. Feathers may have provided not just warmth, but also subtle patterns that broke up an animal's outline, making it harder for predators to focus on their shape. Predator-prey relationships were not only about brute force, they were about strategy. Some theropods were ambush hunters, lying in wait near riverbanks or forest edges. Others were pursuit hunters, chasing prey over open ground. Similarly, herbivores adapted behaviors to anticipate these threats. Many may have had keen senses of smell or hearing, allowing them to detect predators before it was too late. The constant push and pull of these strategies shaped their bodies and their behaviors alike.
Fossils give us remarkable glimpses into these struggles. One famous fossil from Mongolia shows a velociraptor locked in combat with a protoceratops. The two animals preserved mid-battle, claws and jaws entangled. Both died in the struggle, likely buried suddenly by a sandstorm. Such fossils are rare windows into the intensity of these encounters, reminding us that survival was never guaranteed. The young were especially vulnerable. Predator attacks often targeted hatchlings or juveniles, too small to defend themselves effectively. To counter this, many herbivores may have nested in colonies, laying eggs together in safe areas. Fossilized nesting grounds show hundreds of eggs clustered in single sites, suggesting communal behavior. Parents may have guarded these nests, and in some cases, cared for their young after hatching. This protection increased the odds that at least some offspring would survive in a dangerous world. Predation also shaped ecosystems more broadly. By keeping herbivore populations in check, carnivores prevented overgrazing and allowed plant life to flourish. In turn, healthy plant life supported larger herbivore populations, which sustained the predators. This cycle of balance ensured the stability of ecosystems for millions of years. Without predators, herbivores might have stripped landscapes bare. Without herbivores, predators would starve. Life was interconnected at every level.
But there was more to the story than just dinosaurs. Crocodile-like reptiles lurked in rivers, ambushing anything that came to drink. Giant pterosaurs may have preyed on small dinosaurs or scavenged their kills. In the oceans, mosasaurs and plesiosaurs hunted fish, ammonites, and each other. Wherever life thrived, predators followed, adapting to every niche the planet offered. It is worth imagining how these scenes might have looked. On a sunlit plain, a herd of hadrosaurs grazes, their crests echoing low calls across the valley. At the edges,
A pack of dromaeosaurs watches, waiting for the herd to panic. Suddenly, they strike, rushing toward the group, claws flashing. The herd scatters, the thunder of their feet shaking the ground. One young hadrosaur stumbles, and in an instant, the hunters are upon it. The drama is brutal, but necessary, for without it, neither side could survive. Predation was not cruelty, it was balance. Each death fed life, each chase strengthened the survivors. Over time, this dynamic produced the incredible variety of forms we find in the fossil record. The horns of ceratopsians, the armor of ankylosaurs, the claws of dromaeosaurs, all of them were born from this ancient contest between hunter and hunted. For over 160 million years, this balance endured. It created landscapes alive with tension, where every rustle of leaves might signal danger, and every shadow overhead could mean death. Yet it was this very struggle that allowed dinosaurs to thrive, adapting endlessly to the challenges of their world. In the eternal dance of hunters and the hunted, the dinosaurs remind us of life's resilience. They show us that survival is not about eliminating struggle, but about adapting to it, shaping new paths through the challenges of existence. It was this balance, fragile yet enduring, that made their world so rich, so vibrant, and so alive.
Chapter 9: Extinction and Survival. Every great story has an ending, and for the dinosaurs, that ending came suddenly and violently. For over 160 million years, they had ruled the land, adapting to every challenge, diversifying into forms both mighty and strange. They had survived continental drift, volcanic upheaval, and shifting climates. Yet, around 66 million years ago, their long reign was brought to a catastrophic close. The extinction that ended the age of dinosaurs was one of the most dramatic events in the history of life on Earth. The most widely accepted cause was an asteroid impact. A space rock, likely more than 6 miles wide, hurtled toward Earth and struck near what is today the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact created the Chicxulub crater, over 90 miles wide and 12 miles deep. The force of the collision released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs, sending shockwaves across the planet. Within seconds, forests near the impact site were incinerated, and tsunamis hundreds of feet high crashed across coastlines. But it was not just the immediate destruction that doomed the dinosaurs. The impact threw vast amounts of dust, ash, and vaporized rock into the atmosphere. This debris spread across the globe, blocking sunlight for months, perhaps even years. Plants withered, food chains collapsed, and ecosystems that had flourished for millions of years fell apart. For creatures that relied on abundant vegetation, like the great herbivores, the loss of plant life was devastating. And without prey to hunt, the carnivores soon followed.
The impact was not the only force at work. At the same time, massive volcanic eruptions in what is now India, known as the Deccan Traps, released enormous quantities of lava and toxic gases. These eruptions may have worsened the crisis, spewing carbon dioxide and sulfur into the air. Climate shifts became extreme, swinging between heat and cold, disrupting ecosystems already reeling from the asteroid's effects. It was a perfect storm of catastrophes, striking at the very heart of life on Earth. The result was the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, which wiped out around 75% of all species.
Among the casualties were the non-avian dinosaurs: Tyrannosaurus, Triceratops, Hadrosaurs, Ankylosaurs, all vanished from the earth. The skies lost the great pterosaurs. The oceans saw the last of the mosasaurs and plesiosaurs disappear. It was a mass dying unlike anything the planet had experienced in millions of years. And yet, not everything perished. Some creatures endured. Small mammals survived, hiding in burrows, feeding on insects and seeds that remained after the devastation. Crocodiles, with their ability to live in water and go long periods without food, pulled through. Birds, descendants of small feathered theropods, also endured, carrying the legacy of dinosaurs into a new age. The survival of these groups was not chance alone. It was a testament to their adaptability. In a shattered world, the creatures most flexible in diet and habitat stood the best chance. The extinction of the dinosaurs cleared the stage for new life to emerge. With the great reptiles gone, mammals began to expand, exploring niches that had once been closed to them. Over millions of years, they grew in size and diversity, eventually giving rise to primates, and much later, humans. In a way, the end of the dinosaurs was also the beginning of us. To imagine the extinction is to imagine silence after noise. For millions of years, the earth had echoed with the calls of dinosaurs, the thunder of their footsteps, the clash of predator and prey. And then, in a geological instant, that sound faded. The world must have felt empty, its landscapes stripped of the giants that once defined them. Forests grew back, oceans recovered, and life continued, but it was never the same.
Yet the dinosaurs are not entirely gone. Every bird we see today, from the sparrow outside a window to the eagles soaring high, carries their legacy. They are living dinosaurs, survivors of a catastrophe that reshaped the planet. In their feathers, in their bones, and in their behavior, we glimpse the ancient lineage that once ruled the earth. The story of extinction is not only about loss, it is also about resilience. Life did not end 66 million years ago. It adapted, transformed, and found new ways to thrive. The end of the dinosaurs was the end of an era, but not the end of life's creativity. It reminds us of the fragility of existence, but also of its enduring strength. For paleontologists, the extinction is both a tragedy and a mystery. Each fossil found near the boundary layer, the thin band of rock marking the moment of catastrophe, tells part of the story. Iridium-rich clay, shocked quartz, and ancient soot bear witness to the impact. Bones of the last dinosaurs rest just below this line, while above it, new forms of mammals and birds appear. It is a dividing line in Earth's history, a marker of one world ending and another beginning. When we look at that line, we are reminded of our own place in Earth's long story. The dinosaurs once seemed eternal, unshakable in their dominance. But even they were vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Their extinction is a lesson in humility, that no matter how mighty, no species is guaranteed to last forever. And yet it is also a story of hope,
For from that devastation rose new life, new possibilities, and ultimately, us. The extinction of the dinosaurs remains one of the most dramatic transformations the Earth has ever witnessed. It was a moment of destruction, but also of renewal. Though their age ended in fire and shadow, their memory lives on in the rocks beneath our feet, in the birds above our heads, and in the imagination of every person who has ever looked at their fossils and wondered what it was like when giants walked the earth.
Chapter 10: Legacy of the Dinosaurs. The age of the dinosaurs may have ended 66 million years ago, but their story did not fade into silence. Instead, it continues to echo through time, shaping not only the living world, but also human imagination. The dinosaur's legacy is more than bones in stone. It is a living presence that connects us to the deep past and reminds us of the resilience of life. One of the most direct legacies lies in modern birds. Every sparrow in a city park, every penguin sliding across ice, every eagle soaring high above mountains is a dinosaur in disguise. Through feathers, hollow bones, and nesting behaviors, we see the unmistakable imprint of their lineage. When a bird takes flight, it carries with it the triumph of survival, the unbroken thread linking the mighty Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor to the living world around us. The dinosaurs did not vanish entirely. They adapted, transformed, and continue to thrive in a new form. The fossil record itself is another enduring legacy. Each discovery adds a new piece to the puzzle of life's history. Skeletons preserved in stone allow us to reconstruct not only the shapes of these creatures, but also their behaviors and environments. Fossils of nests reveal patterns of parental care. Trackways show migration and herd behavior. Even the scars on bones tell of battles fought, injuries survived, and lives lived long ago. Every fossil is a story, and together they form a library of deep time.
Dinosaurs also left their mark on the Earth through the ecosystems they shaped. For millions of years, they were the gardeners and engineers of their world. Sauropods, by consuming vast quantities of plants, opened spaces for new vegetation to grow. Herbivores spread seeds across landscapes, helping forests to regenerate. Predators, by keeping populations in balance, ensured ecosystems remained stable. The influence of dinosaurs on their environments echoes forward in time, showing us how life continually reshapes the planet it inhabits. Yet perhaps the most profound legacy of the dinosaurs lies within us. From the moment humans first uncovered their bones, these ancient creatures captured our imagination. Early fossils, misunderstood, gave rise to myths of dragons and giants. Later, science revealed their true nature, and they became symbols of both power and fragility. Dinosaurs remind us of the grandeur of evolution, of life's ability to create forms so extraordinary they seem unreal. They also remind us that no reign lasts forever, that even the mightiest can fall to forces beyond their control. Culturally, dinosaurs are everywhere. They appear in museums, where children press their faces to glass, staring in awe at towering skeletons. They fill stories and films, from terrifying monsters to gentle giants. They inspire art, games, and dreams of worlds lost in time.
In this way, dinosaurs live not only in stone and science, but in the collective imagination of humanity. Their legacy is not just biological, but cultural, a shared fascination that transcends generations.
The lessons they leave us are profound. The extinction of the dinosaurs reminds us of Earth's vulnerability, of how quickly life can change in the face of catastrophe. In a time when we face our own environmental challenges, their story becomes a cautionary tale. It warns us of the fragility of ecosystems and the importance of adaptation. At the same time, their survival through birds is a lesson in resilience, that even in the darkest moments, life finds a way forward. To walk among the fossils of dinosaurs is to feel the weight of time itself. It reminds us that we are part of a continuum stretching back billions of years, part of a living planet that has endured countless transformations. Dinosaurs were not separate from this story, they were one chapter in it. And though their age ended, the story goes on, carried forward by the survivors, and ultimately by us. When we imagine a sauropod grazing in a Jurassic forest, or a raptor hunting across a Cretaceous plain, we are not simply indulging in fantasy, we are reconnecting with a reality that once was, a reality preserved in stone and science. That connection is the true legacy of the dinosaurs. They bridge the gap between the ancient Earth and the modern world, between what has passed and what still endures. The legacy of the dinosaurs is written in the rocks, in the skies above us, and in the minds of every person who has ever wondered what it would be like to see them alive. They are gone, yet they are not forgotten. They are lost, yet they live on. In every bird's wing beat, in every fossil unearthed, in every story told, the dinosaurs remain. And so, their reign does not truly end. It simply changes form, carried forward in ways they could never have imagined. Dinosaurs remind us that life is not static, but ever evolving, ever adapting, ever surprising. Their story is one of grandeur, of tragedy, and of survival. And though the world they once ruled has long since vanished, their presence lingers, timeless, eternal, and forever a part of Earth's great history.